today we have a special guest with us today, and his name is Ethan Wood. Would you like to say hi, Ethan?
Hello from the dark side.
Oh no, that's not right. Oh no. Well, this is a good idea where this is going to go. Anyway.
Sorry about that.
Oh,
This is the demons coming out for a second.
yeah, it's good. So, Ethan, explain what you do and what you
Like,
have.
for a living? Because I certainly don't do music for a living yet. Although I wish I did, it would be nice. You can go ahead and check the description of the podcast where you can probably find my Bandcamp. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, know what I mean. So anyway, you guys have been wanting me on this for a while. Thanks for inviting me. Glad to be a part of the Joe Rogan experience after all these months. I'm just honored. I'm a huge fan of your show. So.
Well, thanks, dude. We're a huge fan of your channel, dude.
Indeed.
So we thought you'd be a great host guest to have on the show.
Okay.
We were really big fan of your content. So.
Aw, thanks, guys.
Yeah, we talked yesterday a little bit, but
we did, yeah. We actually tried recording this podcast already. It didn't work.
Yeah, you weren't supposed to mention that.
Oh crap! Sorry.
This is the first time we've tried to get together. This is our first time meeting with him.
Definitely the first time I've plugged my merch, which you can find down in the description below,
Yeah.
along with my Bandcamp link.
And our currently non-existent
Sure.
merch. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm working on merch. Someday it'll be out.
Oh, dude, that'd be awesome. I want Ethan Wood merch.
So, Ethan, how
Yes?
did you get into doing music?
Oh, that's a good question. Thank you. Well, I've been interested in music pretty much my whole life. I got into producing music in 2011 after hearing Levels by Avicii, rest in peace. And that was one of the first songs I listened to where I was like, holy cow, I want to know how to make this. And then I looked up Avicii and what kind of programs he used, and it was like, oh, he uses FL Studio to make his music. And I was like, hey, Dad, can I get FL Studio? And we didn't have money at the time, so I got the free version and used that for 2 years, and then I bought it myself after saving up money, and I'm still using that darn program to this very day. I have branched out to other things like Ableton and Pro Tools and that kind of stuff, but yeah, 2011, I basically just found someone's version of GarageBand even before I knew how to get FL Studio for myself, and was making music on there. It's garbage, by the way, but you can find it in the Bandcamp link in the description below.
Yeah. I guess he's just assuming we're just gonna plug all this stuff.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You're just a figure, dude. You're not. No, you're just a
Oh,
figure
God
for our
dang.
future plot in
Oh.
the future.
The truth
You're just
comes
a-
out on the H3H3 podcast. Gosh.
On the H3H3 podcast, what the crap are you all smoking? What are you smoking,
What? This isn't the
dude?
Joe Rogan experience? Come on,
No.
man.
We don't
This
have
isn't
enough
the
weed for
Howard
it to be the
Stern
H3
show?
podcast.
I was really
Yeah.
thinking I was on the Howard Stern show for a second. Like with the professional vibes that I'm getting from the show, I was like, holy cow. Anyway, the point I was making, how I got into music. I've always loved music. And it wasn't until I remember the first album I ever listened to where I was like, holy cow, I want to make music. Because in the description of the album, there was only like one guy credited with making all the music, and I didn't know that was possible. I always thought, like, you need a full band, you need a bunch of producers, you need all these people to come make an album work. And then Ocean Eyes by Owl City came out, and I was probably 12 or 13 when 12 something like that, when that came out, and I remember listening to that and being like, oh, this is really cool. I didn't know one person could do all this music, and I guess that knowledge that one person could do all that has inspired me to essentially do all the music myself, because I grew up in a small town where no one else knew how to produce, so I basically had to just fend for myself. And now, you know, with the rise of, I said SoundCloud already, but with the rise of websites like SoundCloud, you can pretty much meet producers on the fly and just, you know, exchange music with them and be like, hey, check out my SoundCloud, boy. And SoundCloud has become this place where, like, all the worst people in the world who think they're producers end up. People who don't want to put any time or effort into their music but think they can get a couple thousand clicks on a song. And they do. They do. They upload one track and it gets them thousands of clicks, and it's like, holy crap, what am I doing with my life, spending time and effort on my music?
Time and effort on your videos? What's that?
Yeah, Jake Paul's a good example of that, I would say.
Well, and even Jake Paul, like, you could argue that he puts grind into his videos. Like, he's
on a grind.
He is on a grind. He is working, like, you know, every day, bro, or whatever. And he's doing all that vlogging and all the videos and all. Ugh, sorry, my emotions were coming out for a second. Ugh.
Oh my gosh. Keep your emotions out of this.
I know, sorry. Hashtag Jake Paul for life.
Dab on the haters.
Dab on them haters. Yes. But yeah, you know, love him or hate him, you gotta admit that he does put some effort into his brand, and that I can respect. Is he a good person? That I don't think we can agree on.
I can't. Yeah, no. I think I can agree with you on. We can all not. Whatever. Yeah, I agree with you.
We can all agree that he is probably not.
All
yes, right. There we go. That's what I was gonna say. I'm
gonna leave my opinion out of that one just in case he ever listens to this episode of the Joe Rogan, and I'm gonna let's move on. How about that?
Yeah. We don't need him screaming Walmart at you.
Walmart. I strayed. I had a couple different points in there, but yeah, sorry. Go on.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine, dude. So what's up with the coming to the U.S. vlog? Did you go to college in Thailand or something like that?
Quite the opposite. No, I grew up in Thailand. My family moved there when I was 6. They teach at a international school for missionary kids and all, and Thai kids as well. But basically, just like a big hot hodgepodge of international cultures at my international school in Thailand, where I went for 12 years. Which was, you know, there was good and bad that came with it. Like, I grew up with a very unbiased view of the world. Got to see pretty much every different kind of person, and I thought that was pretty great. However, I hated the people I graduated with. By the time I graduated, not all of them, but quite a few of them, I just couldn't stand anymore because I'd known them for 12 years, and there was no opportunity for me to, like, grow in their eyes as a person. Because when you know someone for so long, you have all these memories of them in the back of your mind. So even if when they're a senior, they're a pretty decent human being, you'll still remember when they were in middle school and they called you gay and tried to smash your head into a wall. You know, things like that. But, you know, I'm not saying that was my experience. That was just that's a hypothetical example. But, I mean, basically, I liked this school. Great school. It was just mostly the people that went there that I wasn't too big of a fan of. I'm sure some of them were great human beings and whatnot, but I don't know. Not for me. So anyway, after graduation, which was... How old am I? Crap. 2016.
Excuse us while he finds his ID.
Yeah, hang on. Where did I leave that MD? No, I graduated in 2016 and moved back here to the States to go to college because my family was originally from here. I was born here in Seattle, and it was kind of just like first thing that came to mind when we were like, hey, where do you want to go to college? I was like, well, got a lot of family here, got a lot of connections and places to fall back on in case I drop out or, end up homeless. So yeah, I came here to Seattle. I went to Seattle Pacific for a year, and then I transferred because I didn't have enough money. So, yeah.
So how bizarre was it from, like, coming from Thailand to America? Like, how bizarre was that?
There certainly was some culture shock in there, mostly because I had to start getting used to how, like, self-obsessed everyone is here. Like, I got a taste of it in Thailand because friggin', it's not like I missed the rise of social media or nothing, but, like, it's like when I got here, it was amplified, and I just noticed, oh my gosh, everybody thinks they're the center of their own universe, and everybody thinks that anyone who disagrees with them is their enemy. Obviously, I'm generalizing there, but that's the impression that I get from a lot of people online, and even people I've worked with recently. Not all of them, because there are a lot of very sane people in this world, but the ones who stand out are the people who are like, if you're not with me, you're against me, and my ideology is perfect. I am 100% right, and nothing you can say can change that. Like, those kinds of people are just not worth socializing with, because, like, they've already made up their mind, and nothing you can say can change that. So, that said, I fully respect everybody's ideologies and opinions, and if yours is different than mine, great, let's discuss it. I'd love to know where you stand on issues. Yeah.
How opinionated would you say people are in the U.S. compared to back at home?
Too much. Too opinionated. Definitely, because I don't know, maybe it's because in Thailand, a lot of, I don't know if you know much about, like, Asian cultures and stuff, but a lot of Asian cultures are based around shame, and Western cultures are based around blame. So, guilt. So Western cultures are based around guilt, and Eastern cultures are based around shame, meaning that when you do something wrong in Western culture, people will let you know. People will call you out on it, and they will get up in your face because it's their darn right. People in a lot of Eastern cultures will not openly guilt you about it, but they will shame you in the back of their minds and just not associate with you. And so therefore you'll hear a lot of like in ancient stories about, like, Japan and China, like, this is a very, I don't agree with this viewpoint now, but, like, back in the Middle Ages in China, a man could only bring honor to his family or no honor to his family. And a woman could only bring shame to her family or no shame to her family. And so basically that was their entire purpose in life. A man had to fight and be honorable, and if he didn't, he brought no honor to his family. If a woman was a good wife and a good helper, she brought no shame to the family, and if she failed at that, she brought a lot of shame to the family. It was, and that kind of, there's a lot of remnants of that to this day in a lot of Eastern cultures, in that, and you'll notice it most in, I think, like, Japan and China, where they just strive for perfection, because otherwise they're going to bring shame and dishonor to their company or their family. And again, I'm generalizing here, but it's interesting to look at countries like Thailand and Japan and China and see how dedicated people are to education, how dedicated people are to just bettering themselves, and how infrequently they try and break out of that hole, try and break out of that world. Because you're asking, is there as much like, are people as outward with their thoughts and feelings about it? No, because in a lot of Asian cultures, it's very like dishonorable to break out from the crowd, as opposed to here in Western culture where we praise breaking out of the norm. It's not that we don't want to say we love and accept it. Everyone loves and accepts it, but here we promote it, I guess. And you can argue whether that's a healthy way to live or not, but honestly, when I was living in Thailand, I felt it was a lot easier to talk to people when I didn't have to worry about them spewing their opinions at me. And your opinions are fully valid, I will say that once again, but again, not everyone cares. That's, I think, the big thing to take away from this is not everyone cares about what you did today.
Mm-hmm.
We always, like, over here in the Western side of things, we always hear about that kind of thought process, except it's like, I don't feel it's ever really explained that well, but I think you did a really decent job.
I tried. That's what matters.
Yeah, well, I feel like I learned something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That, so.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you for that question. It made me think a lot, more than I'm used to at this early in the morning.
Oh, yeah. That's what we're all about.
Rad.
All right, so I guess you can take the next question, Ben.
All right. Now, coming from a culture that doesn't tend to spew opinions, we're going to ask you to spew your opinion about something.
Okay.
What is your opinion on modern music and the whole idea that a lot of it is written by just a couple guys, and then there aren't a lot of new artists because companies don't want to risk it, and just that whole kind of thing that's going on?
Yeah, well, I kind of touched on this already with the SoundCloud people, but like as much as I crap on SoundCloud, it's basically the place where, because of how Steam has become a place for indie games to thrive, and where indie developers don't have to go through AAA publishers anymore. They can just make a good game and put it out online, or make a really crappy game and put it out online.
Either way, it'll get played on the internet somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. SoundCloud is kind of the equivalent, or maybe more like Game Jolt, something like that. It's kind of that equivalent because, anyone could upload their art there, and that's great, and I fully respect that. However, when I see people who have clearly put no effort into their music and have paid someone else to produce their song, paid someone else to make the beat, paid someone else to mix and master it, and all they've done is like rap and maybe sing out of key on their song and had someone else fix it so it sounds gorgeous. Like, it's not that I hate that kind of music. My problem with it is that it all sounds the same, and there's barely any innovation with the indie music scene. Sorry, not indie music. Indie music's a whole other thing, but like the small time SoundCloud rappers, they're the first thing that pop into my head. People who may only have a Bandcamp page, like myself, you can find in the description.
Dude, we're not plugging you. I'm kidding. I'm joking. We'll plug you, dude.
If I do it so many times, you're gonna have to, or they're gonna be like, "Why is there no link in the description? Why did they put it in there? What's he talking about? Why did they put his Bandcamp in the description?"
Yeah,
So.
or we'll just edit all of the times you plugged yourself.
Yeah.
So you can go ahead and check my in the description.
Yeah, and they'll be like, "What the crap?" They're like, "What's in the description?"
As far as my opinion on modern music goes, I think that there is some great music that comes out nowadays. In fact, one of my favorite bands to come out of the last couple months was a group called Superorganism. And it's an 8-piece band. They do like indie electronic styled stuff, and their lyrics are really nothing too special, but they have an amazing sound, and it's unique, and it only comes when 8 people who are really passionate about coming up with something new come together and just like throw their ideas onto a canvas, and that's really what their music sounds like. It sounds just like 8 people bashed heads, and this is what happened. This is the sound that their heads made. It's really cool, though. I highly recommend them.
I'll have to go check it out.
Yeah. But like, for every superorganism, you have, I can't even name any of these people because I listened to their stuff once and never listened to it again. But I've had people give me their mixtape, give me their single, and tell me to listen to it and check it out. And I'll listen to it and be like, did you do this? Or did you pay someone else to do this? And I know I come off as a little bit of an elitist for saying that, but I have a lot more respect for people who just make their own music and do it all themselves. Not that you're not a good artist for paying someone else to do it, but I don't know. If you pay someone else to do your music and then it's still generic and really bad, then I'm like, what did you even do? You just wasted someone's time making it and then listening to it. But if you can get someone else to produce your music and make something that is amazing, like, you know, Post Malone. Post Malone's a great example. It's not like he sits in the producer's chair and produces every song he does. He does help with the producing, but I mean, he has someone else help him out, and that's fine. And his music is still great. And to him, I give full credit. You know, he's a brilliant musician. If you can do that, I will still have full respect for you. And, you know, I don't listen to Drake, but I know he's a, you know, brilliant producer, and a lot of people love him and respect him, and that's great. You know, good for him. More power to him. But if you come at me with your SoundCloud single or your Spotify single and tell me that you put your heart and soul into it, and I listen to it for 3 minutes and I've already forgotten what it's about, you failed. You need to come up with something that people haven't heard before. And I know that's like a really weird task to give yourself, but the goal shouldn't be to do what everyone else is doing, even though that is technically what pop music is. And that's why you might hear me have a little bit of issue with pop music, is because so much of it is, oh, I'm just going to do what's already been done, or I'm going to do what's really popular right now and milk that till it's dry. And, you know, I don't know. It's... I don't know. It gets... I don't want to say that it makes me upset, but it just... Yeah, it does. It makes me a little upset to see people stoop to the point of just, like, compromising. Like, Maroon 5, you know, used to be a great 5-piece band that utilized all of their musicians. Now you listen to a song of theirs that could have been made the same way that a Post Malone song was made. And, I mean, we don't know how they make their music. I haven't watched any behind-the-scenes stuff from them, but when I listen to a new Maroon 5 song, all I can think of is, I could have made that by myself in my with my laptop. Or Post Malone could have made that. Or Ariana Grande could have made that.
It's like comedy bits or whatever. It's like little skits. It's like, you know, it's like when you watch somebody that's like, it took them like 6 months to make, but you're just like, dude, I could have made that in one evening.
Yeah, and that's not to say I'm putting myself up on that level. Like, realistically, no, I could not make what Maroon 5 is making, just because they have a lot of producers, again, working on their music that just polish that crap out. Like, those producers are good at what they do. The people who you hear on the radio, they are very good at what they do. But it's not usually the person whose name is attached to it. It's usually 6 or 7 other people who have all helped them record and master and engineer those songs. And they, you know, they get a little bit of credit if you actually look up the song itself. But if you're just listening to it on the radio and you hear, Cardi B made this new song, that's great, I like her, you don't really think about all the other people who worked on the song. Unless you're somebody who's in my position who does that for a living, and or at least just trying to. And you can definitely support me by checking out my Bandcamp link in the description.
Go check out his freaking band link.
Just go check it out. My gosh, she's gonna keep plugging it.
So
anyway, if the tab's not already open, then freaking, I don't know why you're still here.
Yeah. Sorry. If just so you know, when you listen to a popular song or even an indie song or something like that, just think while you're listening to it, think about all the people who worked on it. Don't just settle for, wow, this one person whose name is attached to this song is great and I like them. Like, if you feel that way, that's fine. You're probably 6. But if you're any older than, mid-teens, you should educate yourself in knowing where to give credit, where credit is due, I guess. That's where I'm going with that. I feel like not enough credit is given to producers.
Yeah.
Unless they're producers like David Guetta or DJ Snake. Like, those kinds of producers are people who have come into their own as DJs and producers. And
dude, you forgot DJ Khaled.
DJ Khaled. I honestly don't know what he does.
Well,
I'm with you on that one at least.
I'll tell you what he does.
I think he has a soundboard that just has this little, you was smart, you was important.
Here's $200. Go buy your mama a house.
Buy another one.
But,
no, I'm sure he's grinding just like everyone else is. I mentioned Avicii already. One of my favorite producers of all time, who was one of the biggest inspirations for me to get into music. He was one of those guys who, produced and mixed all of his own stuff. He didn't sing on his own tracks, but he didn't have to. He was the name at the beginning of those songs, and when I listened to an Avicii song, I was like, oh, he's the one who made this.
For sure.
And that's the kind of music that I'd rather listen to, is something that feels like when you listen to it, you're like, oh, this person put their heart and soul into this. Instead of, oh, this person spent probably 2 weeks just sitting in front of a computer with their producer, and their producer made the whole thing, and it sounds very soulless.
Mm-hmm.
So,
for sure.
As opposed to, I spent months working on this one song, and it has 100 views. Definitely not me. Oh.
That just means that's 100 people or so that's like actually took the time out of their day to actually watch you, and that's
exactly.
All that
and
matters.
To all 100 of you, I love and appreciate you, and I would never complain.
And then you spend like 30 seconds making a meme, and you post it, and it becomes the second most popular thing you've ever posted, and you're just like, why?
Oh man, memes. That's a whole nother conversation. Man, just like as far as memes go, I look back on like 2012, 2011 memes, and that stuff it's weird to look back and be like, wow, we thought that was funny. And
yeah,
we did. Like, we legitimately used to think the troll face was funny. We used to think that all those, like the Velociraptor with the top text, bottom text, we used to love those.
Mm-hmm.
And now you see something like that and you're like, get off the internet, Grandma. Come on.
Go to Facebook.
And we're gonna look back on 2018 humor one day, probably 2024 or something like that, and we're gonna be like, why?
I think E might be the perfect encapsulation of like what's wrong with memes today. Like, don't get me wrong, I see the E meme and it cracks me up, but I hate that I laugh at it. I hate that it makes me laugh every time I see it.
It's a good dad joke. Just laugh just because it's like, ugh, oh my god.
Because at least with like back when memes were quote unquote more wholesome, I don't want to say that because they were never really that wholesome.
They were never
back
wholesome.
when they were more innocent, I guess. They were younger memes. You didn't feel like a piece of crap for looking at it. You thought, oh, this is really funny, I'm going to share this with my friends, and then you did. Now you're like, oh, this is really funny, I'm going to share this with all my friends and ruin their day. You know, that's kind of how memes work now.
The next question is, what is your creative process? Try to make it short. Press for time.
My creative process for writing music? Well, writing a song can take anywhere from a day to, like, I think the longest I ever spent on one song was probably Walk Away. And that one, I think it's probably the best one I've made so far, just because I did spend so much time.
Okay, if there's one thing I'm going to plug for you, it would be Walk Away. I would definitely plug that for you.
You plug in for me, bro? Wow.
Dude.
Appreciate it.
Well, you were going to beg for it anyway. You're going to
I was actually not. I was going to leave it. I was just going to be like, hey, I've already plugged Bandcamp. You know where to find Walk Away. If you know me, you can find it. But yeah, that was probably the most time I ever spent working on a song. The shortest time I ever spent working on a song was Goodbye from my album Forward a couple years ago. And that was a song that, I don't know why, it was just like I'd finished homework or something for that day, and I was like, I am so bored right now. It's 4 p.m. I want to make a song. And I was sitting in my college dorm room, and I was like, all right, let's go. Let's make a song. And I just sat down, wrote out a pretty simple beat, and then wrote out some lyrics, recorded that dang thing, filmed a music video while I was recording the lyrics, and just uploaded that crap to YouTube. And boom, that's like somehow one of the more popular songs that I've done. And to this day, I'm like, why is that one more popular than Walk Away that I spent a year and a half developing and working on?
Oh shoot, a year and a half?
Dang.
I started writing Walk Away, the first version of Walk Away. I wrote it back in the fall or the winter of 2016. So.
Oh my gosh, dude. Well,
dang.
Congrats. It showed though. It definitely showed. You put time and thought into it. It definitely showed.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. But yeah, like if you go back and listen to Goodbye, I'll admit it's a good song. I think I did a decent job with that, especially considering I did it in one afternoon. But that's what blows my mind, is that apparently it doesn't matter to people how much time you spend on a song. And I think that was when it hit me that, like, going back to my point about credit in producing and that kind of thing, like, people, when they listen to a song, do not care. People do not care about how much time is spent on a song. They just want something that's catchy, at least in the mainstream pop music. They want something that they can listen to several times and just learn the chorus to, play at a party, play in the background while they're doing homework, and whether you cater to that is up to you. So, but yeah, as far as my creative process goes, with all that in mind, just so you know, it's not easy to write a song. You know, as much music as there is out there, you would think it's pretty dang easy to make a song. But oh no, another example of a song I did in a day was that 8-hour challenge video I did with my buddy Henry. Henry from Hijodo Brodo, who I grew up with in Thailand. He and I had been making music and movies together since like 2006, and he came by around March and was like, "Hey man, let's hang out for a while," and we did. And while he was here, I was like, "Hey, let's for old time's sake, let's make a video and let's make a song." And to this day, the the friggin' gun violence video is one of, like, every time I see someone in person, that's the video they talk to me about, and they're like, "Why would you upload that?" And it's usually family members. They're just like, "Ethan, take that crap off YouTube." And I was like, "No, it's art, dang it."
I actually loved the skit. It was actually a really good skit. I liked it a lot.
I'm glad you like it. So that, Grandma, if you're listening, people like the video. People thought it was a funny commentary on gun violence and Donald Trump's attitude towards it, and how they blame video games for it, which is redonkulous.
Well, my question is, were you actually pointing like a real gun at him? Were you pointing a real gun at him?
The only shot where it actually looks like I'm pointing a gun at him is this wide shot towards the end. And it actually looks like, because of the way the camera was positioned, it actually looks like I'm pointing a gun at Henry's face. I was not. Oh. I was standing in the foreground and he was in the background. And I was probably, 5 feet to the right of him. But the way the camera's positioned, you can't really tell.
So it was a real gun.
Yeah, so no, it was it was a real gun. And maybe that's the thing that got people upset the most, was that I used a real gun.
That's the only thing I could really see.
we made very, very careful sure very careful, sure, Ethan, really? We made very sure that it was not loaded and that the safety was on and that we could not in any way blow Henry's head off.
Well, apparently a lot in filmmaking is, like, you have to do whatever it takes for the shot, which I don't agree with fully.
No, I don't know if we should go that far.
Yeah, but you know.
I think one could take that rule a little too far.
Yeah, since I know people were divided on the video between basically generations, because it was like all the parents really did not like the video. All the kids seemed to love it. You know, maybe it's just a sense of humor thing, and being on the internet after a while, you just kind of get desensitized to, not violence, but you get desensitized to shock value, and that was kind of the point of the video, was it was meant to shock. So.
Well, I think you did a good job with that.
Appreciate it.
Well,
yeah, the other video we did was the 8-hour challenge, which is actually, it pays homage to another video that came out in like 2010, and funny enough, that video was one of the first videos I saw, along with Owl City's Ocean Eyes and Avicii's Levels. That video was one of those things where I saw it and I was like, whoa, you can make a music in a short period of time with just a couple guys? I didn't know that. You know, so like the original video is also called the 8-hour challenge, and we basically just ripped off the title and the format of it just because it was one of those videos that I wanted to kind of pay homage to and be like, oh, thank you for inspiring me. Here's me returning the favor. And basically it's these two guys sit in their mom's basement and they write a song in under 8 hours and film the video and put it up on YouTube. And so Henry and I tried that. It was surprisingly difficult. We ran into a couple roadblocks, but we managed to do it in under 8 hours, and it was fun.
What advice would you give to people who are trying to get into the entertainment business, essentially?
Like me. I mean, what? Yes, continue.
Like, what would you say is how would you say they can get through some hurdles and stuff like that you went through to at least get your foot in the door?
Man. Well, one of the philosophies I've always had, and this is why there's so much gosh dang music on my Bandcamp, is that you just got to put your stuff out there. Like, no matter how bad it is, you'll always look back on whatever you make and hate it. That's just a philosophy. That's just a rule of life. No matter what you do, you will look back on whatever you've made, and 9 times out of 10, you will hate it. There are some things that you might still enjoy, and that's fine. But don't be afraid to make something if you're afraid it's going to be bad, because that's why stuff doesn't get made. That's why, that's just why things don't get made, is because people are afraid of the reception. And you got to realize when making art, it's not about what people think. It shouldn't be, at least. I know it is in mainstream art and media and all that stuff. A lot of it is about the reception of it. How are people going to enjoy this? How much money am I going to make off of this? That seems to be the main focus for a lot of artists. And to that, I just have to say, it's not. You shouldn't have to care about what people think for your music to be good. One of my favorite albums that came out recently was Passion Pit's Tremendous Sea of Love from last autumn. And basically, if you know Passion Pit, major indie pop artist, he does like weird synth electronic stuff. It's really cool. One of my favorites. And he basically, he'd come off the success of his previous album, Kindred, and you know, he was kind of just riding the success of his music, and people knew him as this electronic superstar. And then he had to take some time off and like rethink what he was doing, because he was still super depressed. He was still struggling with anxiety and everything, even though he had success and all the money and music in the world. So he took some time off to write this album, Tremendous Sea of Love, and then he just produced it all in like a short period of time and uploaded it to the internet, did not promote it or nothing. And so what you have is this very raw album that's just like him literally putting his brain into music, and he didn't like overly produce it to make it sound nice. He didn't promote it to let all his fans know that it exists, and he just kind of put it out there, didn't like advertise it at all. So what you have is this really small album that barely any of his fans have actually heard. And I listened to it, and you listen to some of the lyrics, and they're just like, they're small little stories about, like, he talks about his relationship with his mom at some points. He talks about, you know, breaking up with a girlfriend. He talks about struggling with anxiety and the need to keep putting stuff out there to stay relevant, much like YouTube has kind of forced YouTubers to do. Yeah. But I think it's an amazing album. If you're not into the style that is Passion Pit, I understand, but I think it's worth a listen to just go and check it out and hear him just be like, you know what? This can still be art, even if we don't. It's not that he's not trying. He tried very hard on this album, but it's not about the presentation. It's about the art, essentially, is what he's going for. And I highly recommend that one for anyone who's interested in some good indie electronica. I forgot what your question was. Sorry.
It was just, what advice would you give people trying to get into entertainment?
So yeah, put your stuff out there. Don't worry about its reception. That was where I was going with at that point. Was you know, if it's bad, it's bad. Get on with it. Learn from your mistakes. If people let you know it's bad, then you take that criticism and you learn from it. Like, one of the big reasons why there's a lot of these SoundCloud artists who are so stuck in themselves that they got to get these clicks, and they spend very little time making it sound original, is because they're afraid of criticism. They're afraid of hearing, oh, your song sucks. And I remember, again, gonna plug my Bandcamp, but if you go to the album Glowing Pains that I did in 2015, I took that into a producer, and he basically crapped all over it and told me it was garbage and that I needed to do it over again. And because it was the first time I'd ever gone into a studio, because I was like, oh yeah, I've been recording in my bedroom for some time. I want to learn how to record in the studio. So I took it into him, and at the time I didn't know how to EQ, I didn't know how to master, I didn't know how to do hardly anything, but I knew how to compose music and put it all into FL Studio and do that kind of thing. So I brought him in these songs, showed them to him, and he was like, it's garbage, essentially, is what he said. And it like tore me apart. It was the first time I'd ever really been like criticized for my music. Like I remember the first song I ever did, I Am Lost, people made fun of me because the music video was awkward as hell. But the Glowing Pains was the first one where somebody had straight up told me, this sucks. If I think the words he used specifically were, if you put this on iTunes, no one would buy it. And I was like, oh dang. So like it discouraged me. And for a while I was like, the whole reason I was doing music was for people's reception. That's why I had so much, that's why his words had so much weight with me, was because, and it discouraged me from doing music for months. Like I didn't make another song for like a year. And I don't think I released that album until much later, but, and I regret that. I regret that I didn't just put the music out there anyway and just said, you know what, screw you, buddy. This is my art, and I'm going to put it out there regardless. Because I remember doing all this promoting for it on like Facebook and stuff, and when it didn't come out, people wrote me. They're like, hey, dude, where's Glowing Pains? And I was like, it doesn't exist. What Glowing Pains?
Like, yeah, for me, it's like, okay, I'll just say
now
I have unlisted some of my videos, because it's like, a lot of them were just like, sorry, I've been gone, I'm coming back. So I was just like, I'm done with those. I just want those gone. But it's like, for the most part,
and I understand, like you don't want to keep all your old stuff up. It's fine to like not like your own stuff and just And it's fine to get rid of the irrelevant stuff.
The thing
It's just
was, it wasn't even creative. It wasn't entertainment. It wasn't anything. It wasn't anything to me. So I'm like, get rid of it. I don't want that garbage. And I'm not saying everyone should do that. If you want to actually keep a chronological thing of everything you've done, then great. But
at the end of the day, it's your decision. At the end of the day, it's like, it's totally up to you. No one else can tell you how to, like, keep track of your work. Honestly, I'm just some dick here sitting in front of a microphone telling you how to live your life. Don't listen to me. Go do your own thing.
Well,
Gosh, get off your butt. Stop listening to this podcast. Go stand up right now and go listen to something else.
Stop! We barely get any views as it is. Okay, anyway, but like I would say from me personally, keep most of your stuff. Keep all of your stuff, because it's like, for me, every time, because I thought, hey, my first video was great, and then I made my second one. I looked at my first one, I'm like, that's garbage, but I kept it because I think it forces you to get better, because it's just like, dude, that's not me. That's not me. I promise, that's not me. I can do better. It's like, it's not like not trying to get approval kind of thing, but it's just kind of like, hey, I can do better, and I want to move away from this as much as possible. That is if it sucks. If it's a good thing, then I don't think you should have to necessarily. But unless you want to move on, but like me, like I was doing gaming videos. I think almost everybody has started out with gaming videos at this point.
Yeah.
It's like
I started out with music, so.
Oh, well, you know, good for you, Ethan. But
actually, we were talking about this last night. If you go search the depths of the internet, you can find me and my buddy throwing around Bionicles at cars, and that's our video. That's like the first thing we did. It was like 10 years ago now, so.
Oh yeah.
But definitely not putting that in the description.
Yeah. Oh no! We're putting that in the description.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
But
anyway,
I can say that my first videos were absolute trash, and I actually shoved them all into a playlist called "Old Videos." No, really, old videos. Don't watch these. But because what happened is that, like, my absolute worst video, I had no idea what I was doing when I started recording. It was terrible. It was worse than my first video, actually. It was my most popular video for the longest time. It's like, why? Stop. No, really, stop.
You're like, look at this loser.
Stop, please. Don't look at this video. Look at this video or this video. Anything but this one specifically. Why is this the most popular one?
I remember for the longest time, the most popular video on my channel was this a cappella cover of Gone, Gone, Gone by Philip Phillips, and it is garbage. It is dog crap. It is so bad. Like, but it has 2,000 views, and people loved it for some reason. There's all these, like, there's like 50 positive comments on it. People are like, oh my gosh, Ethan is so good. You should do more like this. And I'm looking back on it like, were you all high? What was wrong with you people? Who listened to this and thought it was good? It was so bad. And like, but see, it doesn't matter what I think. People enjoyed it, and that's fine. You can feel free to enjoy it, but I hate that video, and it took me years before I could get a video past that view count. And now, I mean, I have quite a few, but it's, again, took me a long time, and I hated looking at my own channel because it always said, here's the most popular upload by Ethan Wood. I'm like, no!
What do you think of the resurgence of 80s style things, of music and film and movies, and the possibility of an actual 90s resurgence in the 20s? Because it seems that pop culture tends to look 30 years back. 80s films look back at the 50s. 2010s films look back at the 80s. Maybe the 20s will look back at the 90s.
Do you want to know why that is?
Yes.
It's because all the kids who grew up in the 80s are now the people who are old enough to make music and movies. And all the people who grew up in the 90s in the next decade are like, all the people who are like born in the 90s are going to be the ones old enough to make movies and
make
music. Because, I mean, realistically, like 30 is about the age when you're able to like make a movie. Essentially,
Yeah,
people
that's
don't
like-
really
that's like
trust
at your
young
peak.
directors. People don't really trust. I can't say that. Like there are a lot of young directors of movies, but like, as far as music goes, I think part of the reason that there's like so much 80s inspired music, and you'll notice that with the music that I've been doing, and even I didn't grow up in the 80s, but part of that is not just like, obviously the main reason that it's so popular is because there's so many adults now who grew up in the 80s who are now heads of industries and can say, oh, let's bring back all the stuff that I loved when I was a kid, because everything's better when you're a kid. But there is an element of nostalgia that comes with 80s music. Like if you listen to popular music of the 80s, for some reason, and I'm still trying to decipher this myself, but it's, I don't want to say better, but there's so much more heart put into the pop music of the 80s compared to the pop music of today. And I think part of that has to do with social media, in that everything nowadays is made to get clicks. Everything's made to be as popular as possible. And back before the age of the internet, you didn't have to worry about that. All people wanted was to make a catchy song that was usually uplifting. And I don't know. I don't want to say I think social media has kind of corrupted people's view on why we make music. And people who look back on the 80s, and this sounds really pretentious now that I'm saying it out loud, but people who look back on the 80s music with like fondness and nostalgia look back on it because they prefer when it was more innocent, prefer when it was like back in the 80s, there were so many depictions of the future. And that's one of the and you know, all these flying cars and everything, like Blade Runner. Blade Runner is a perfect example of, like, back in 1982, their depiction of the year 2019 was that we would be in this cyberpunk dystopia with flying cars and like all this technology that we do not have today. But people look back on that movie as like a perfect, like, not just with nostalgia, but they look back on it like, oh man, I remember when I was a kid and I watched that and it was so cool. Things today suck. Like, that's the mentality that a lot of people have nowadays, and whether you have that is completely up to you. But I think even if you don't think that, there is still a ton of positive nostalgia that comes from the 80s, and that's why people have latched onto it so much. People love it. People, like, I talked to my parents about when they grew up in the 80s and 70s, and they're like, oh yeah, it was so much better than it is now. And whether or not that's true, because, you know, there were a lot of problems in the 80s and 70s and 90s that we happily forget about. Like the fact, like, my dad, who lived in boarding school, couldn't communicate with his parents for years because they didn't have Skype. Things like that, you know, that you blissfully forget about because you're like, oh man, the 70s were great. So with all that in mind, the whole idea of like the adults who grew up in this era are now old enough to be heads of industries. I do believe, yes, that we are in for a 90s resurgence. And believe it or not, I've already considered working on some 90s music myself. The theme song for this podcast, for an example, was my attempt at making like a 90s hip hop kind of beat. So,
and by the way, it wasn't anything like what we thought it was going to be, so it was kind of like a big shock when we finally heard it. We're just like, do we even like this? Because it was so different from what we gave you. And then we're just but then we're listening to it for a bit, and we're just like, oh.
Hey, it's not half bad.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you guys liked it, because I really went on a whim going that different with it, because I was like, I made a jazz song like the one you guys sent me, and I listened to it a bunch, and I'm like, you could just find this crap online.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's where we found it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like, the one that you gave me was better than the one that I made, so I was like, if they want something like this, they should just use the one they gave me. But
yeah.
I just went with something else.
Yeah. Well, we can save the whole explanation of the theme song for a later date. But,
a whole episode devoted to the theme song.
So, we wanted to do one little thing it's not, but we thought it would be fun for this. But anyway, we want to see if you could improv a song.
Improv a song?
Yeah, just like sing it.
You just sing it. Yeah, just singing. If you could just improv a song real quick.
All right. What about? Give me a prompt.
Okay.
As they say in improv, give me a prompt.
I drink coffee in a water bottle.
Drink coffee out of a water bottle. All right.
Yeah. There you go. There's your premise.
Right.
Very well then.
Get my bearings here. Why you looking at me? Ooh, 'cause I got a cup for drinking my coffee. Yeah, you're judging me. You're looking at me from across the room. And I tell you, hey man, don't judge me. I'm gonna drink in front of you. Yeah, I wanna drink my coffee in out of a coffee cup. Or was it a water bottle? Can't remember. I wanna drink a coffee cup out of a water faucet. This song makes no sense anymore, so I'm gonna stop.
That was awesome.
That was awesome, dude.
Thank you. You can find more exactly like that on my Bandcamp.
Oh my gosh, dude. Yeah, that was awesome, dude. Well, I just want to thank you for coming on this somewhat passable show.
Oh, come on. I don't think you guys give yourself enough credit. You guys have some good presentation here, and I regret comparing you to the H3 and Joe Rogan podcasts because you guys are your own thing. You guys are perfectly good on your own. So you guys have and these guys were very sweet about asking me. They were like, "Hey man, we like your stuff. Please come on to our show." And I was like, "Hell yeah, man. I don't get to do anything like this. It's been years since I even hosted my own podcast."
Oh yeah, dude. It's pretty difficult, at least the way we went about it. But, in the end,
I think you guys pulled through. So,
well, thanks,
congratulations, you guys. Thank you for having me on.
Well, thank you very much for being on.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Love you guys, and love you guys. Be sure to listen to all the episodes of the Electrical Box, and yeah,
dude, we're capable of plugging ourselves. Thank you very much.
Oh, well, I thought I was just here as a tool for you guys to get views.
Oh, what did we say that?
We don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Anyway, so thank you guys for watching the 4th episode of the Electrical Box with our special guest Ethan Wood.
That's me.
You can check him out here, and you can check out Ben here, and you can also check me out, which I don't understand why you'd want to check these two out when you
Are you
check
kidding?
out me.
Yeah, I only want to check out bro.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, thank you.
Look at that Brody.
Dude. Yeah. Hey, don't say my name. Anyway, and you can also see our most recent video right there. And thank you guys for watching. And
love you
until
guys.
Next time.
All right.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.